Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing the Notre Dame Georgia Tech preview. Sorry, I'm not decked out Notre Dame gear this time. It's a little more casual. I don't know how in depth we'll go. This is the precursor to the big matchup this year, the match of the year, the biggest game that we have to pay attention to in Clemson. So obviously this is what you could call a trap game. That game that you have right before the game you've been focused on all season, with a team that you probably don't think much about. So you know what I mean? Like, it's not, there's a potential for a trap there, but if this team is legit like it's supposed to be and what we think it can be as Notre Dame fans, I think even general people know that Notre Dame should handle Georgia Tech easily. It's a game we should win just as big as last week, if not bigger. The FBI on ESPN's FBI to Football Power Index, they give their percentage predictions, and they give Notre Dame a 94.2% chance to win. That might be our highest percent of the year. Georgia, it's no surprise. Georgia Tech is a team that is obviously in a rebuild kind of mode still. This is their coach's second year, I believe. They have talent. Don't get me wrong. They have talent, but their defense has been really struggling, and they have a really young quarterback who is still prone to make mistakes. We'll get into him in a little bit, I should say. And so that offense, while it has potential there. Two young guys that will be stars, more than likely, if you ask me. There's still, a lot of work that has to be done with that program, a lot of kids he has to bring in. This coach, like I said, he doesn't even have, obviously, the majority of the students on his team are not, he didn't recruit them. And so he's still in that phase of rebuilding. I'm not going to hate on Georgia Tech. I actually think their coach has the chops. Like, he could help this Georgia team out in the long run, and they could have a successful rebuild. But obviously, at this point in time, this is Notre Dame's game to lose. Really, if they lose, it's because of crazy mistakes that they would make. And obviously, even if Georgia Tech gets good, I still have faith that the Notre Dame team that we know and they've kind of become a perennial contender, at least 10 wins a year kind of a deal. I think Notre Dame would still beat Georgia Tech for the most part. Obviously, that's future casting. We're focused on this game right here. If we're getting into some team stats right here, just to kind of hound in more on this point, Notre Dame's offense, which obviously none of us have been super high on, is still averaging a fairly impressive 35.6 points per game, rounded up to 36 points a game. Not bad at all. And you really think about it, that average is weighed down significantly by our kind of blunder of a win against Louisville, where we only put up 12 points, and the week one matchup where we put up 27. But even if you keep, the 12 points weighs it down more than anything. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, offense, like I said, hasn't been spectacular. The highest amount of points they've ever put up in a game is 27, which is our second lowest, and that was against Louisville. Sorry, I lied, guys. My bad. They've put up points, but they put up 46 against Louisville, that was their most impressive win of the year. They dominated Louisville, which is something we didn't do, obviously. A lot of time has changed since then. They're coming off two fairly big losses where they got completely demolished by Clemson. They let Clemson score 73 points on them, which included, I'd assume, at least the fourth quarter, if not the entire second half. No, Clemson had their backups in, so that's kind of an embarrassing kind of showing there. And then another relatively trouncing, losing 48-27 to Boston College, who's good, but nothing, crazy. They're not ranked or anything like that. So the momentum's kind of fallen away from from Georgia Tech here. They won their opener against Florida State, lost two in a row, got the win against Louisville, but are back to kind of just losing again. Who knows what's going on with Louisville? They're looking a little better now, but still, like I said, this is a team we should beat. Their offense outside the Louisville game hasn't been particularly impressive, scoring 27, 7, 20, and 21, those four losses that I'm talking about. And then defensively is the biggest gap widens. I mean, this Notre Dame defense is allowing less than 10 points a game, right at 9.8, compared to Georgia Tech's defense was just giving up kind of astounding 41.2 points per game. When teams are averaging 40 on you, that is not a very good recipe for success, especially when you're only averaging, rounded up, 23 points a game. Obviously, that means these games you've been losing haven't really been great. Some examples here, the top one kind of to focus on is the fact Syracuse is definitely not a team to be proud of this season. They've been really rough this year, to say the least, and their offense hasn't particularly been astounding, and they were still able to score 31 points against this Georgia Tech defense. UCF, which is a good team, pretty good offense. Obviously, they put up 49. Clemson, like I said, not surprised, put up 73. And the Boston College offense, which has been pretty effective with Notre Dame transfer quarterback Phil Dracovic at the helm, is put up 48 last week. So teams are scoring at will. Obviously, their numbers inflated by the Clemson loss too, like how our offensive numbers are deflated by the Louisville win. Theirs are inflated by the Clemson loss. But regardless, like I said, teams are scoring at least 35. 37 is the lowest I see. Obviously, I don't know the Florida State score right now because it doesn't show up on this chart. But in general, the trend has been going bad for this Georgia Tech defense. I follow some Georgia Tech Instagram pages because I run an account that's football related, plus a bunch of football helmets and crap. So quick plug to that. Football uni helmets, all one word, on Instagram if you want to see any cool football helmets, usually college football stuff, I put new helmets, old helmets, etc. But regardless, it's a rant. I follow Georgia Tech pages on there because, you tag them in some of that stuff and whatnot. And I just love college football enough. I kind of like seeing how other teams, how their fan bases feel about certain stuff going on. And I've seen some calling for the Georgia Tech defensive coordinator to be fired already. They have talent on the defense. They have some young kids. They're all young, though. That's the problem. There's some talent in that linebacker core and stuff. But from what I've heard, they've been underperforming. And, obviously Georgia Tech fans are annoyed by that. I think they got to be patient, too, though. Like I said, they're rebuilding. So, some credit to Tech. They can get it done eventually. Yards-wise, it's a little surprising that, Georgia Tech only averages 20. I'm going to keep rounding up for them, 23 points a game. But they do average almost 400 yards a game at 396, while Notre Dame averages 439. Pretty good. They both do pretty well with the rushing and passing game. Georgia Tech's best player on offense, to me, is probably I think he's a freshman running back, 4-star, Jameer Gibbs, I believe. It's something Gibbs. I think Jameer, forgive me if I'm wrong, but he has 308 yards and 69 carries and 2 touchdowns so far this season. He's a pretty good running threat who should be a problem in the ACC in the years to come as he continues to improve and as the offensive line in front of him continues to improve. But that's a guy we should kind of work out for. They are averaging 180 rushing yards a game, which isn't bad. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. Although Notre Dame's run game has obviously been superior with a 231.8 average. We pounded the ball heavy most of our games. And obviously that's weighed down with the fact we did not run particularly well against Pitt, and the average is still 232 if you round up, which isn't, that's impressive. And I think this Georgia Tech defensive line's they don't have the chops that a team like Pitt has. Pitt has some elite. Pitt's kind of one low-key a defensive line. With Aaron Donald's the world, but they got like 3 or 4 draftable guys playing on that defensive front, which obviously creates problems even with our stellar offensive line play that Notre Dame has. I do think Notre Dame's offensive line should have a better day against this Georgia Tech defense, which isn't necessarily known for excellent pass rush or anything like that. So expect the run game to probably get going a bit more. I do think since this is the game before Clemson, I think they want to tune up that pass game again, so look out for that. Obviously, they finally found a little bit of a spark with the pass game this week. Last week against Pitt in the 45-3 trouncing of them. Put up relatively good numbers passing the ball. Was way more successful than the other games in the past, except maybe the Florida State game we passed pretty well too. 207 yards passing a game now, which I think is higher after that Pitt game. It's probably a little lower before that compared to Georgia Tech's 215. So both, they're pretty balanced offenses. If you go off the yards passing and rushing per game, that's pretty good. If you want to look at the passing yards and rushing yards allowed, this Georgia Tech defense is pretty bad with both of them, so that's a good thing to see there. They're almost giving up 200 yards allowed per game, I believe is how that works, which obviously works out very well for a team that's averaging 231 yards a game, 232 yards per game. That passing defense is not great either. The fact they're giving up 280 passing yards per game is obviously less than stellar for them. Could present some opportunities for us to continue. They get this pass game going. There's some important things we have to do this game because the reality is Kevin Austin is done for the year, and the speedster Braden Lindsey, who are, debatably they're going to be our number 1 and 2 wide receivers coming into this year, are both out with Austin missing the rest of the season, he's barely had any playing time this year with that nagging foot injury. And Lindsey injured his hamstring again, and he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks, which means he will, in fact, miss the Clemson game, which means to me, this game is more important than before with the fact that we got to get our young guys involved. It's finally time that we see our freshman wide receivers take the field. There's some pedigree behind these kids, at least 2 of them. So the main one is Jordan Johnson. If you're a Notre Dame fan, hopefully you know about him. He was a 5-star when we recruited him. He got downgraded because, of course, he did by the time signing day came around. But the reality is he was still the number 6 ranked wide receiver in the nation. So an incredibly high 4-star. Bright future there. Excellent skills. Definitely deserves playing time and just hasn't got it yet. From what I've heard, I'm filming this on a Thursday. Some of the press conferences and stuff I've seen already, and people have been at practice, said that Jordan Johnson is he's getting first-team reps in practice, no longer scout team stuff, more than likely out of necessity. So injuries pulled Brian Kelly's hand enough that he has to. He has no choice. So obviously it's a negative that Austin and Lindsey are out for this amount of time that they are. But the bright side means that Kelly can't keep his talented freshman on the sidelines anymore, which was bothering a lot of us. So we'll get to see him. It sounds like we'll get to see him this game. If Kelly was smart, he'd work him in as much as possible because if he has the talent, our best chance against Clemson is we need our best guys out there, and he appears that he could be one of our best receivers, especially with the way the unit has been performing as of late. Ben Skoranek kind of burst onto the scene again. He's been missing games and dealing with the hamstrings too. It looks like he's finally fully at 100%, in that Pitt game really clicked. Only 2 catches, but it was for 100-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. Really proved himself as a vertical threat that teams will have to look out for. So hopefully his chemistry with Book continues to grow this game in time for Clemson. Clemson's a tough challenge even when you're fully healthy, so obviously there's more challenges here that we need to address, and more opportunities for these young freshman receivers, including the other one is Xavier Watts, he's a composite 3-star, but he was a 4-star by 247 Sports. He looks like a good prospect too. We'll have to see if he gets any playing time at all. For now, depending on how much they play Johnson, it looks like the starting receivers are going to be Skoranek and Javon McKinley on the outside, with Avery Davis in the slot still, who Avery had a good game last week too. It looks like he's, like I mentioned in the last video I did, kind of talking about that Pitt game. Davis, this is his, he's been bounced around everywhere, so he's finally getting to settle into a role, so he should get better as a receiver each week too. I'm forecasting again because I'm trying not to overlook this Georgia Tech team, but it seems like as a fan, I should get to. The team better not, because we need to beat them. Notre Dame's actually a 20-point favorite this game. That's a pretty big. I think we can get it done. I don't know if I'm going to go into some player stats first before I get all crazy with some of this other stuff. Let's kind of just chime in here with this Georgia Tech team. Let's look at some of their stats, what they got going on before we get into some of our guys again. Look at some of their defensive leaders and whatnot. Statistically, the quarterback is the kid I want to talk about. He was a 4-star true freshman, had some pretty solid offers coming out of school, ended up at Georgia Tech. He's been decent. He's making freshmen some stuff you'd expect from a freshman, especially with a freshman who's, I'm sure some Georgia Tech fans probably like their wide receivers a bit, but if we're being honest, they're not exactly loaded at that position. He's not working with people on his level. There's not a lot of 4-stars in that wide receiver room, for example. Not yet. Anyways, let's see if the Georgia Tech coaching staff can get it done for him in the future. But for now, like I said, it doesn't all that impress me. But Jeff Sims so far has 1,196 passing yards. The issues, though, he has talent. He does. And people have talked about that every time he's on the field. But the reality is he has a 55% completion percentage and has thrown 10 picks to his 8 touchdowns. So he's throwing more picks than touchdowns, which presents a great opportunity for this Notre Dame defense, who finally got the turnover game going last week, getting 3 interceptions against that Pitt team. So I expect us to, I demand that we get at least 1 interception against this young quarterback. Our defensive coordinator is good enough. We should be able to trick this kid and make him make a mistake or two, concerning he's thrown 10 picks in the 5 or 6 games they've played. He's also been sacked 8 times, which presents an opportunity for our pretty solid defensive front to get some good pressure on the young kid, maybe increase the odds that he makes some of these mistakes I've been talking about. He's 8 sacks for a loss of 59 yards. He may have a problem holding to the ball. That's a lot of lost yards on the 8 sacks. But hopefully we can make that happen. Obviously, he's young, like I said, so he's got growing to do. He is talented, though, so we can't sleep on him. I think this defense is going to have to do its job like always, but there are opportunities there to maybe force him to make some mistakes. Running the ball, Sims is a running threat. That's something we want to look out for. Obviously, the last pretty mobile quarterback we played presented us some issues. The Florida State kid, Jordan Travis, did give us some fits in the ground game, so we really can't let that happen. This defense is hopefully short up from now. Obviously, that game we were covering off our COVID crap, and a lot of guys won't even be able to practice properly, so hopefully now they have a game plan to shut down Sims' run game, as he is the team's second leading rusher with 275 yards, averaging 4 a carry. Gibbs was the talented freshman I already talked about with 308 yards, but they spread the wealth a bit at the running back position. They actually have multiple running backs get some carries going on, including Jordan Mason, who has 82 yards and 20 carries. Jamarius Griffin and Dante Smith both have 100-plus yards, with Griffin getting 161 yards on 39 carries, and Smith giving a relatively more impressive 193 yards on 28 carries. He's averaging 16.9 yards per carry, which leads all the running backs who have more than 10 carries. So just look out for the running back group. They can rotate guys in and out. I think they like to run the ball, especially when they have that quarterback like that. Obviously, he can't make throwing mistakes if we can't stop the run game. Our run defense has been relatively solid this year, so we just got to make sure that we stay committed to that and are able to shut down this Georgia Tech run game, make him throw the ball, and make him pay that way through mistakes like interceptions, maybe have him strip sacks, etc. Receiving-wise, they actually have 3 wide receivers who have over 200 yards in the year already. Okay, 2, because Gibbs is a receiving threat too. He has 206 yards and only 15 receptions, averaging almost 14 per catch and 3 touchdowns. Compare that to their 2 top wide receivers, Malachi Carter and Jalen Camp, who have 226, 218 respectively, and 2 touchdowns apiece. Those are the top guys we'll have to look out for. I have faith that our corners can do their jobs. I think their wide receivers are probably actually more talented than Pitt's, but we still should be able to do, if this DB room's what we think it is, and with Tariq Bracy coming back and getting the practice time he needs, we should be able to relatively contain that Georgia Tech passing attack. Kicking-wise, it seems like they've used 2 different kickers. They have missed some extra points, actually. One of the kickers missed 2, and the other one has missed 1. The field goals have been really rough for this Georgia Tech team. It appears they've only made 1 field goal on 5 attempts all year. That's something to look out for. If we can hold them to field goals, there's a chance they won't even make them. That'd be huge for us. On defense, Quiz Jackson and David Curry are kind of the 2 top linebackers they have. I think those are the kind of guys the names I hear the most. They have big physical safeties too, but these linebackers are the guys who are supposed to be the most talented. They've been underperforming fan expectations from what I've heard. Sacks-wise, let's see the numbers there. Let's see if they get any good pressure going on, if they'll do it. Okay, so they have 4 guys with 2 sacks, so not bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, guys. 2, 4, 6, 8. They have 12 sacks in the year, which that's actually pretty decent, but I think they haven't really had to play an O-line as good as ours yet, so I'm confident our guys can get it done. Forgive me if I don't know much about, their defensive front. I do know, like I said, they're a rebuilding team who's given up 41 points a game. It shouldn't be much of an issue. Impact players for this game, I'm going with Jameer Gibbs, the running back for them on offense. Like I said, Sims is a good quarterback, but he's definitely a mobile guy who can use his feet more. So, the run game in general is kind of my X factor, but I'm going to focus more on Gibbs because if we can shut down the run game and make Sims throw, that's when, the 10 picks and the 55% completion percentage and stuff like that can finally come in, and maybe we can get some plays off that. Defensively, for an X factor, I think we're going to go with something a little different. I didn't mention this just yet, but they have a DB named Zamari Walton who has 2 interceptions and 3 passes defended. He's looked like according to those numbers, that's a pretty solid season. Obviously, those linebackers I mentioned, their leading tackler and Quiz Jackson, those are guys you want to look out for there. So just keep an eye on for these guys. It's kind of those impact players. Obviously, this is a young Georgia Tech team, so I have faith they will get better eventually. But for now, it's definitely still a team that we should be able to handle. For Notre Dame this week, my impact player, I'm forecasting, and I'm going to say Jordan Johnson. I believe that he will get playing time finally, and I hope he does. And it's going to be really important for him to get it going and just in time for us to play Clemson next week. I think he has the talent, too, to really flash if we give him the opportunity. So hopefully look out for him. If he doesn't get the playing time, I think we're just going to go Book because, obviously your quarterback's really important, and Ian Book's play still needs to continue to step up and improve. This week's our last kind of tune-up week before we have to play a very, very solid Clemson team. Defensively for us, that's a tough one. I think since I mentioned the run game, I'm going to go with Owusu Koromoa. Obviously, we know how talented the kid is. He's got NFL pedigree there, first or second round draft pick. But, he's good in coverage too, but his run stopping ability is good, and he's been all over the field, so we need him. Along with Hamilton, who's done pretty well in the rush defense, along with pass coverage, we're going to need them to lock up and shut down this rush attack from Georgia Tech, especially with their quarterback scrambling ability. Might have to spy him and whatnot. All right, guys, so those are my impact players, kind of my overall thoughts on the game, give you a little deep dive into the statistics. Let me know how you think this game's going to go. I don't know what to predict the score. This might be my least conservative pick yet. I say we win. I'm not going to say 45 this time. I don't know why. Who knows? Maybe we start a little slow or something. I'm going to go 35-10. I don't know if that's a bold pick or not. I believe that will have us cover if that's the case. Let me know what you guys think, what your score predictions, anything you agree or disagree with me on. If you're a Georgia Tech fan, tell me a little bit more about your team. If my impact players are wrong or who you think could stand out this game, feel free to comment below. Let me know. I love talking with any of you guys in the comments. I enjoy talking sports with anyone, so yeah, go ahead, comment if you want to. Make sure to please like this video and subscribe. It'd mean a lot. I'm at 132 subs. I'm trying to get to 140 by the end of the year. If it's possible, it'd be a great thing to accomplish. Click over here for the playlist on all my Notre Dame football videos. This includes my previews for every game and my post-game reactions of every game that's happened. I've missed one or two, but you know what I mean. Most of the ones I have, all the ones I have made are on this playlist. And right here is where you can subscribe and mean a lot. Like I said, help me reach 140 subscribers. And over here is just a video that YouTube has decided to recommend for you from my channel. So feel free to check that out too if you have the time. Once again, this is K-May Preston. Thank you so much for watching. Go Irish.